Our title for this session is Terrible Market to Waste, Neuromodulation Conquers the Mind. We have some exciting folks doing some much needed work for populations that need our help, our talent, our empathy, and our expertise. Today, I'm joined by the newly minted winner of the Golden Electrode Award. And I know... Wingeier? All right. Drink. Dr. Brett Wingeier is the CEO and co-founder of Magnus Medical. It's a company that just recently came out of stealth mode to great fanfare and a much-deserved breakthrough device designation from the FDA for non-invasive technology for major depressive disorder. He spent a significant amount of time at NeuroPace and Halo Neuroscience. He earned his PhD in biomedical engineering at Tulane and Stanford Biodesign trainee. Additionally, on Zoom today, we have Scott Burwell, PhD. He's the CEO and founder of Neurotype. He's a developer of portable neurofeedback software that measures biomarkers linked to drug craving and relapse at the point of care in substance use disorder treatment. Dr. Burwell completed his PhD at the Minnesota Center for Twin and Family Research and has held fellowships at the Schwartz Center for Computational Neuroscience, which is, I believe, UCSD, or at least in San Diego. He's University of Minnesota Psychiatry Department and Insight Data Science in Boston. And finally, we have our resident pot stirrer, Daniel Powell. Dan is the CEO at Spark Biomedical, and it's a company that's tackling the other pandemic, which is opioids. Spark's opioid withdrawal therapies have shown tremendous success in weaning our smallest, most delicate, and most in need population, opioid-addicted neonates. He said he was going to do his best to make y'all cry. As a promise I know he can deliver on. He's a veteran in our field with years spent at St. Jude, Levanova, Getinge, who named that company?
Getinge. It's Swedish.
Okay.
It was not.
No further explanation. Okay. Nope, got it.
Next time.
I saw that at IKEA. All right. Not exactly sure, but he was only there for a year before he moved on to Nexion and finally started up Spark Biomedical. So with that, I'm going to ask Brett to start us off.
Great, thanks, JoJo. So I had, I was going to do this without slides, but then I realized everybody else was doing slides. So.
And you noticed that I took the Scotch promise off the table.
And I noticed that you took the Scotch promise off the table. So.
All right.
We could. So while we're teeing it up, I certainly want to keep this kind of informal, but I wanted to share a little bit about what we're doing at Magnus, but also link that back to some general themes here, because this is a panel about it's about neuromodulation for psychiatric disorders, and in some ways, neuromodulation for psychiatric disorders it seems like it's been a little slower in coming than with some other fields, because the brain is hard to understand in the first place, and when you take these network disorders, you take a pathophysiology that affects not just something relatively simple like movement, and I don't mean it's simple at all, but something that's mood and emotion and perception. It gets even more complicated, and we're kind of held back by our lack of understanding of some of these disorders. I'm sure I don't have to convince you that depression is a huge big deal. You're probably aware of the numbers already, but there's 17 million people in the US alone who are, they suffer from major depression. That's obviously that's a lot greater worldwide. 5.5 million of those have treatment-resistant depression. And treatment-resistant depression means that the meds just don't work very well. And it's a really rough journey. Of those 5.5 million, there's 550,000 who are hospitalized every year in the US for depression, often with suicidality. And in terms of the disease they have, it's no different from the others with treatment-resistant depression. They just happen to be the people who have the worst week, the worst month, the worst year of their lives, and they're hospitalized often with suicidality. Now, if we had the slides up, there's a picture, and I can do this without the slides if you don't have them. There's no worries, but I'll take the scotch.
We're looking for them.
So so I'll just keep rolling, and if they come up, they can come up. But there's there's this picture, and it's a picture that is what my clinical co-founder. I'm going to stand up because if there's no slides, then I'm gonna. There we go. So I'm going to be the visual aid here. So there's this picture, and it's what my clinical co-founders see every day when they go into practice. And you get hospitalized for depression. You come in, and first of all, there's almost every other disease or disorder or problem that could take you to the hospital. You get to the hospital, and they say, "Welcome to the hospital. We can do more for you now that you're at the hospital. You had a stroke. We have TPA. We have catheters. We have every trick in the book to make you better now that you're at the hospital." If you come to the hospital with a psychiatric disorder, they say, there's not really too much we can do for you. You sit in the hallway of the emergency room. Sometimes you sit there for days. The psychiatrist comes and visits you, kind of squeezed into this corridor, and they say, well, we can change your meds a little bit. You sit there having the worst crisis of your life. Maybe 3 days later, you get admitted to a psychiatric inpatient unit. They're all losing money. They're closing down. It's really tough to find a bed. Sometimes you sit in the ER for a week at a time. You finally get an inpatient bed, and they still can't really help you much. They tweak the meds a little more. You get some talk therapy. Maybe you get ECT. It's underutilized and really stigmatized in the US, at least. Even that doesn't work instantly. It's not a slam dunk. And eventually, either you get a little better, or you realize if you say you're not suicidal anymore, then you can go home, and suicidality spikes threefold when you go home from the hospital. So yeah, I know everybody knows depression is a big deal, but I wanted to emphasize there's this crisis of acute care for psychiatric disorders. And I wanted to mention it not just because it's relevant to Magnus, but because I'm talking to folks in the industry here, and all of us have the power to support projects that do something about this. It's a huge need and a huge crisis. So one thing I mentioned, treatment-resistant depression. And treatment-resistant depression is, guess what, treatment-resistant. It means the meds don't work very well. Once the first med and the second med don't work, the third one and fourth one don't work very well. It turns out if you have apples to apples comparison, ECT, it's not a slam dunk. New treatments, ketamine, psychedelics, and all the rest.
Zoom, baby, Zoom.
You know what? Let's just roll with it. Yeah, let's just roll without the slides. It's fine. And I'll keep it short so we can make it more of a conversation as well. But treatment-resistant depression is treatment-resistant, and everything takes a long time to work. TMS has been FDA cleared for 13 years. It was a big advance, but the effect size is it's also not a slam dunk in treatment-resistant patients, and it takes 6 weeks in its conventional form. So, kind of bringing it back to what we're doing at Magnus here. My co-founders, the team at Stanford, back in 2017, they looked at depression and they said, well, what if we engineer a treatment instead of just kind of trying things and trying to stimulate the system that we still don't understand very well. So fortunately, this was a time where we started to understand more about the underpinnings of depression. There's a ton going on. Every brain is different, but one of the things that's happening in depression is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, left DLPFC. It is hypoactive, it's underactive. The subgenual cingulate, which is this deeper structure, is hyperactive. And that's you can see that. There's all kinds of stuff going on, little echo. And you can see it light up in that proportion. If you do fMRI on patients with depression, if you successfully treat depression, that imbalance gets a little bit better. So that's why stimulation of the left DLPFC works for depression. So the heart of the technology is a couple advances that take this from what was previously a one-size-fits-all treatment to something that is remarkably effective. And I'm saying remarkably effective, but I'll get to that in a minute. There's a couple pieces that come together. Obviously, there's stimulating the brain with magnetic pulses. That makes neurons fire. It has certain follow-on effects. There's a profoundly excitatory stimulation called intermittent theta burst stimulation. That's been around for a while. You add to that personalized targeting. I mentioned that one of the issues with depression is you can see this balance in activity between left DLPFC and subgenual cingulate. You can do functional MRI and you can say, here's the sweet spot here in you as an individual that is most closely linked to this deeper nucleus. So that's where we can stimulate. Personalized individual target for depression. Another part of it is a dosing and session spacing paradigm. It turns out there's some very special parameters with the timing between sessions that leverages this spaced learning phenomenon. 10 sessions a day, 10 minutes on every hour for 10 hours. Do that for 5 days. You pull all of that together, and that is the SAINT treatment. Now, that I've said a lot of words there. And let's talk about what it actually does in the clinic, though. So the clinical data date back to 2018. Nolan Williams at Stanford's Brain Stimulation Lab said, let's try this in 6 patients. Open label study, 6 patients. These were deeply treatment-resistant unipolar MDD patients. 5 of them went into remission within 6 days. Remission, that's MADRS score of 10 points or less. It means clinically at that moment you kind of don't have depression, or you're not suffering from depression rather. One of these individuals, he had failed to respond to 100 sessions of conventional TMS, 6 sessions of electroshock therapy, 30 clinical trials, 15 medications, a vagal nerve stimulator implant, and they brought him to remission in 5 days. That was published in Brain Stimulation in 2018. The next step was to do an open label study, 20 patients, published in 2020. 21 patients, 90% remission rate in that trial. Similar population, deeply treatment resistant, people just very, very far down the path of TRD. So the professional societies sat up and took notice. Editorials were published that said, okay, this is fantastic, but let's see the RCT. We want to see some sham-controlled data here. So the team at Stanford did the randomized controlled trial. Just in short, similar results: 78% remission rate in the treated group after 5 days, 13% remission rate in sham. The study was supposed to be 60 patients. It was 30. It was supposed to be 60, but it was stopped at a pre-specified interim analysis because it was judged unethical to give anybody sham anymore. The treatment wasn't in equipoise anymore. So they stopped there. Those data published a week and a half ago on Friday, October 29th. And in the middle of all this, we as Magnus Medical licensed the technology from Stanford. We closed a $25 million Series A in December of 2020. We had been kind of operating in stealth mode this entire time. And as of a week and a half ago, we came out of stealth mode. And we're kind of full speed ahead, working on further developing this, commercializing this. There's some points of our strategy that I can't really talk about yet, except to say that our goal is to bring this really profoundly effective, rapid-acting treatment to the world, to do so in a way that helps patients who, in acute psychiatric crisis, where there's this huge need in the inpatient setting. That's one of the first things on our mind. There's a lot of other indications and applications beyond that. With that, let me kind of bring it back to just general themes, because after all, this is a panel on neuromodulation for psychiatric disorders. Why are we standing here as Magnus, with some success, hoping for more success? Well, part of it is understanding the pathophysiology. I'd like to think that depression is kind of the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot we don't understand yet, a ton we don't understand yet. But in the year 2018, enough was understood to say, well, there's this imbalance, and we think this is what's happening when you treat DLPFC. Once you understand the basic pathophysiology better, you can engineer a treatment, put together all the pieces, whether it's the hardware technology, the waveforms. What are the chances that a one-size-fits-all treatment is the best? Exactly zero. So, I think we get lucky when something works for everybody, but we need to be thinking about how do we personalize treatments in the future, and that's probably no shock to anybody in the room that I would say that here. And where that takes us, hopefully, is a world where a decade from now, we've relieved a lot of suffering, and we can restore mental health for everybody. So that's Magnus. That's what we're doing, and thank you.
Brett, I apologize about the slides. Are you okay with us distributing them, or at least some of
Yeah,
them?
that's all public.
Okay, so we'll include that on the conference downloads
Great.
Yes.
site. And again, I apologize for the
No worries at all.
Yes, thank you for withstanding our acute psychiatric distress, and I apologize for that which we caused you. So with that, let's go with our Zoom participant, Scott Burwell.
That sounds good. So can I present via my Zoom presentation?
No, I think to keep everybody equal, that we're going just, no slides everywhere. Please, go ahead.
I could do that. It's all fine with me. I'd be very impressed. So, all right. So I guess I'll try to share that at least, because I don't think I could handle it nearly as well as Brett did. So can you all hear and see this now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. Well, so thank you everyone for accommodating me, and I hope to be there next year. It looks like everyone's having a great time. So I'm Scott Burwell. I am CEO of a company called Neurotype here in Minneapolis. It was founded in 2019 between myself and a partner in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Minnesota. And we're working on some sort of next gen, what I refer to as next gen neurofeedback for addiction healthcare. So let's see there. So it's probably not any, big news, but the substance use disorders in the United States are a huge deal. 22 million Americans have a substance use disorder. About 10% of those annually will seek treatment for substance use disorder. But even of that group, a lot of the people drop out, 30% drop out. And of those who complete treatment, 50% relapse, just kind of cycling back into that big pool. And of that group, or that cycle there contributes to about a $500 billion cost, and all the problems associated with substance use disorder. So traffic accidents, the healthcare that is required for somebody that relapses and has to go back into treatment and so forth, and all the sort of health problems that come out of it. And the top reasons that people tend to drop out of treatment and or relapse, sometimes it's they drop out and that leads to a relapse, but involves these things. I just kind of made this word cloud. It involves drug cravings. So sometimes people know that they just want to go and they want to find the drug. It involves ambivalence. So do I actually need to be in treatment? I don't think so. I can quit on my own, right? Stigmatization. Nobody wants to feel that pressure. Lack of awareness. Some people just don't really know that they might have a substance use disorder. They might just think their behaviors are normal. And we're developing software that is to address, at least these are the top things that I see us addressing in terms of the craving and the lack of awareness and ambivalence aspects. So to a person without a substance use disorder, that's walking down the street, maybe they're in treatment, maybe they just finished treatment. This might look like a sunny day, for a person without a substance use disorder, this might look like a sunny day, nice, beautiful street, veranda, restaurants, and all these sorts of things. But for a person that just got out of treatment, or for a person that is actively in outpatient treatment or something, this might be filled with sort of these traps and triggers that could bring about issues for relapse. And the thing I want to really point out here is that this sort of thing, the cues that can elicit craving and the cues that can elicit eventual relapse and other sorts of problems associated with a substance use disorder during recovery are really poorly assessed in a clinic setting today. Everything is assessed in terms of, self-report measures, subjective ratings on a 0 to 100 scale. How much are you craving right now? But nothing is really projected outside of the clinic, or very rarely projected outside of the clinic to see how you might handle a situation when you encounter it on the streets in real life. And so what we're developing is we're using portable EEG headsets. This is some data that we collected from opioid use disorder patients with the Neurosity Crown device. They're a company in New York City that have developed a portable EEG headset, 8 channels. And on the top, we have a person without opioid use disorder, and we have event-related potentials. And this is the next generation neurofeedback that I'm really trying to pitch here, is that that differs from traditional sort of QEEG or other forms of neurofeedback that tend to be easily biased by things like a person moving or clenching your jaw or something like that. But these event-related potentials here are in responses to pictures that are flashing on a screen. Some of those pictures have drug pictures, drug relevant information in them. Some of those pictures are things like, puppy dogs and chocolate cake. And some of those pictures are boring things like office supplies. For a person without an opioid use disorder, the big brain responses belong to the, puppy dogs and chocolate cake and the cute things. And the opioid pictures kind of fall along with the boring stuff, office supplies and such. But to a person with an opioid use disorder, you see that the opioid brain response correlates stronger with the amplitude of the pleasant cues, of the naturally rewarding cues. And this is a biomarker for relapse in people in recovery. And it's been shown for not just opioids, but also cigarettes and alcohol and stimulants and things like this. So what we're developing is this neurofeedback platform that can be used in clinics that administers those pictures in that way and generates one of these reports. It compares what somebody says they're feeling versus what their brain reactivity actually is. So here we have a dial that says in the green what they think their craving's at, and then in the purple it shows what their brain reactivity is at. And as you can see, these two measures are quite close at this time frame. These are the brain, here are the pictures that are most evocative to that individual at their first assessment. And then fast forward one assessment, or about a week and a half, I guess. And the brain reactivity has gone down. Further into abstinence, their cue reactivity is been reduced slightly. And this pattern of a reduction in both cue reactivity and craving is expected, but they're on different timelines. So often what happens is a person will feel better much sooner than their brain indicates they are better. So I have these orange bars here that indicate what their self-reported craving, their awareness of their own craving level is. And then in the purple bars, I have their brain reactivity. They're fairly closely linked across some of these time points. But in general, the point I want you to take home on the left side here is that self-reported craving goes down much quicker than the brain reactivity. And this gap between the two could be a vulnerability where a person says they're much lower than what their brain actually indicates they are. And in some other patients, I just show this plot, there's no connection between, the person, on their first assessment, so they don't crave at all, but their, reactivity level is, somewhere around 75%. So, what we see this technology of doing is sort of enabling detection of craving, but also things like trying to break down ambivalence. If someone says, hey, I don't need treatment. Hey, I can quit if I want. I don't really feel like, me being here is serving me any good. This is one unique way the clinicians can kind of show the patient that maybe they're not aware of every aspect of their disease. And we do see this. So I might not have mentioned this at the beginning, but you might have caught on. We are not a neuromodulation technology per se, but we are seeing ourselves as a very complementary companion diagnostic or something for neuromodulation therapies, especially neuromodulation therapies that are paired with these sorts of therapies that are targeted at reducing somebody's brain responses to those triggers. So Hamed Ekhtiari he's at the University of Minnesota, a collaborator of ours, has developed sort of this framework around neuromodulation paired with a cognitive task to sort of reshape how someone associates their mind with those cues. Just, sort of final points. Something that we've come across in our journey so far is that just there's sort of a paucity of regulated, FDA regulated portable EEG headsets that can be used for purposes like this. I know there are some brands out there, but in terms of the scale of channels that we're looking for, there's not a lot of selection. And so, this is the sort of thing that would be very appreciated, because as I'm sure everyone in the audience knows, and what we found is that, in order to get adopted for use by clinicians, in order to get covered by insurance companies, especially, having a regulated device is almost required. And so, and also this translates to just a much larger market. When we've worked out the math, the market for a regulated pathway for commercialization has just been far larger than any other kind of pathway. So with that, I don't know if I went over, under, I don't know how my time was, but I want to thank everyone. So we're still entirely funded by Small Business Innovation Research grants and other innovation grants and such like that. But I would love, if anyone wants to get a hold of me, to reach out to me at this email. But thank you.
Thanks, Scott. And now I think we've been promised to break out the Kleenex.
I'll put that at the end.
Okay. All right. Dan Powell, take it away.
All right, I'm going to share from here my slide deck. Can you allow me to share later? The one that looks like me.
You let Dan share.
The one that looks like you. There's 6 buttons up there.
No.
So while he's doing this, you can hear the passion in Brett's presentation and Scott's. When you start working in this field of behavioral health, it starts to change you. You see really broken, hurt people, and it's different than pain. It's different than Parkinson's, because those disease states aren't stigmatized. They're not a moral failing, which is what we have wrongly pinned addiction in this country. We're in a failed war on drugs after 100 years. Who's the last time their alcohol dealer shot somebody up in the street? No. All the crime and everything you find out it's really a messed up system. And you get into it and you meet people who they're just desperate for help in a different way than I ever saw when I was working on epilepsy or working on deep Parkinson's disease. So Brett took about half my talking points, so thanks, and more eloquent than I could probably state them. But there is something he alluded to, and I've started to coin as a term for me. It's called a treatment desert. And there is just not enough points of treatment of qualified people for behavioral health in this country. And it relatively doesn't make very much money when they do. You will find most behavioral health facilities are run by people who once attended them as a patient, and they come out of it wanting to give back to the community and give back and have a passion for that market. But to be specific, so Spark Biomedical was formed in 2018 to use neurostimulation to address opioid withdrawal. On the flight out here in November of 2018, I watched a video, and it was a baby going through withdrawal. And I was just like, we were going after the adult market, and the adult market, the product's on market and was approved this year. But I said to I emailed my partners, I was on the Southwest flight, and I said, we have got to help babies. We'll have to do it. I sat back there where my old boss, Alan Mock's sitting, and Bashar Badrin got up at this meeting and presented the only auricular vagus nerve stimulation data on babies who had had a stroke in utero. So here I was 24 hours after this decision to go after that in this meeting, I'm sitting in front of the only person in the world who can help me. It took him, I think, 18 months or 2 years to get IRB approval for that study to stimulate newborn babies' ears. It took us 2 months writing his coattails to advance this. So it's been very serendipitous. The world needs this. My wife often says the universe is conspiring to make us successful. I tend to believe, but it's only because we're really trying to do this right. So I'll tell you a little bit about, I think most of you have seen my presentation once or twice before, so I want to give 2 highlights, and then I actually just want to end and play a patient testimonial video. And it's not a baby because they're not good at testimonials. You know, we all have this boilerplate slide, but this is, I'm going to use Scott's numbers. He has more people with substance use disorders, so that makes my market bigger, so I'll use his numbers. But the other thing, when I came here in 2018, and we had just formed the company, I was quoting a statistic that about 42,500 Americans died of opioid overdose the previous year. And that is the same number of people who are Americans that died in Vietnam. So we were having a Vietnam War worth of deaths every year. Me and my partners behind the scenes were like, I think we sort of missed the wave on this opioid epidemic. We're starting to get it turned around, and laws are starting to come in place, and the pill mills were gone. I'm wrong on a lot of things, and this was one, unfortunately. Last year was 69,710 opioid overdose deaths. That's up 40% since I started this company. It's awful. It's changed. It's because we're not overprescribing pills anymore. That's all controlled now. It's all fentanyl coming over across the border. And they're putting fentanyl in cocaine, and they're putting fentanyl in meth, and they're of course putting fentanyl in heroin. So it's the only drug nobody wants that people are addicted to. If I offered an addict, do you want some fentanyl? Normally, and you would say someone with substance use disorder does. They would say, no, that's bad for you. I don't want that, but it's in everything now. And it's really making a mess of trying to fix the opioid epidemic. So if I move on, why is the opioid epidemic this bad? Opioids functionally rewire the brain and take away fundamental control to resist the cravings and and really deal with withdrawal. So it is primal. It is not self-control. It is something that in your amygdala, which is misfiring, your body's saying, run, you're gonna die. And most people who've gone through opioid withdrawal describe it as they literally believed in their heart they were gonna die. And that's that primal instinct that is broken through exposure to long-term opioid use. I say long-term, you'd be physically dependent in 1 week of OxyContin and the Max pills. If you haven't watched Dope Sick on Hulu, it's a good representation of how we were hoodwinked by Purdue Pharma into the greatest loss of human life, more than any war or anything, from this drug epidemic. So I'll jump through. What we're able to do is apply neurostimulation to the vagus and trigeminal nerve, drive a signal through the NTS, and drive endorphin production. So your body stops producing its own endorphins once it's used to getting exogenous opioids, or exogenous endorphins, which is opioids. And so what we are able to do is drive a signal, bring down that autonomic balance, so balance out that fight or flight feeling, and then fill the empty opioid receptors with endorphins. We'll be doing some functional MRI studies here next year with a couple of key partners demonstrating these changes in the brain. What it looks like clinically is somebody sweating, snotting all over their face, running to the bathroom every 15 minutes with diarrhea, throwing up, agitation, your bones feel like they're on fire, you are in hell. And within 60 minutes, we were able to take 93% of the patients in our clinical study from that. That's just moderate withdrawal. That's not severe withdrawal. We were able to take 93% of the patients in just 1 hour of stimulation from severe or from moderate to mild or no withdrawal. 1 out of 3 patients had no withdrawal symptoms, and the rest were in mild. And that is the difference between getting clean, getting through detox, and beginning a journey of recovery. So we're really happy with the data. This was a randomized controlled trial. This is the results. What was more amazing is using the neurostimulation 24/7 through the next 5 days, the withdrawal did not come back on days 2 and 3 when normally it gets worse and worse and spikes. So very durable, very consistent results. Those error bars are mostly correct. I mean, really tight error bars. Our error bars were so tight that we went from the Simba concha to the tragus. So going from this little ridge here to the tragus, because neuroscientists want to argue about that till the end of the world. And we were able to see with like 6 patients, it wasn't as good. And we're going to publish that as a white paper and cause a bunch of people to go argue online on Reddit. But it was nice because the error bars were so sharp. With just 6, 7 patients, you go, that's not as good. So it was really kind of cool that we can quickly A/B test different electrodes and different stimulation patterns. This is our next gen device we're about to come out with versus that big black one, and it got all pretty and sexy. And then I'm going to just jump down, just show this is our vision of where we want to go with the company. We started with the ability to get through detox, withdrawal management. So that's that first box today that we have FDA approval for the Sparrow therapy system. And so that, and then also that same concept or market is for neonatals. Neonatals probably won't be on market for a full year or more. But let's help people start and help people finish detox is the goal. We just are kicking off a clinical study though with a vision that can we do relapse prevention? Now that you're clean, how do we keep you from relapsing? Like Scott said, you got a 50% relapse rate at least in the first month after coming out of treatment. And so we're starting this study, it's NIH funded, and we're gonna look at curbing cravings, depression, PTSD, and then protracted withdrawal, all with the end goal of relapse prevention. So can we really curb the opioid epidemic and help people heal long-term? I was talking to someone in the back, and we were talking about, you have this vision, and 3 years later, you're like, oh my gosh, we're doing this. Like we've made it. We got through step 1, step 2. So I'm really proud of this team. This is a big study. It's going to be a couple hundred patients. Because it got an NIH grant, it has some crazy forearms in the beginning and crossovers, and you got to make the NIH happy to get the funding, and then you're like, well, now we got to make the FDA happy and like get results they like. So that's coming down the road, or that starts January. We were able to partner with Hazleton Betty Ford, the #1 clinical institution for recovery in the nation. So we're humbled. I haven't been to the site, but my partner Naveed went, and he came back and he was like, yeah, we're in the big leagues now. So this is amazing. So a great site. We're also doing, the other site is going to be in Baltimore at a place called Gadenzia. The African American community is highly underserved. At the beginning of the opioid epidemic, it was taking place mostly in white, middle class neighborhoods, and it was also often looked as a white epidemic. That has completely changed. Overdose deaths for white people last year did not change percentage-wise, went up 40% in the African American community. So we're going to try to use this opportunity to work with them to bring this technology, improve it in more diverse communities, and help a population that is getting underserved in this market. The last 2 things, and I'll wrap up. So really, next step after this is how do we either prevent the slide into addiction or cure the underlying problem that might have solved it, which is often trauma, which is often PTSD. So we have a couple of amazing anecdotal comments. I mean, people who's just last week, this guy got it on. He has PTSD and sufferings from substance use disorder. And he slept with the device, and he said it's the first time in years he didn't have nightmares from his PTSD. N of one, but you know, these stories are coming in, and we think we can make a profound effect here and focus that. And all of our patents just got approved last week for that, so we're very excited. The last, and I'll end it, is can we prevent the sheer number of opioids being prescribed? This isn't as big a problem, which is why at the end of the list here, but you know, there's 60 million prescriptions a year as people are coming out of surgery. So if at the time of surgery, can we lean into anti-inflammation and anti-pain with our device and actually lower the need for prescriptions at the time and actually reduce or spare the number of opioids prescribed? So that's our long-term, we'll get to that idea. I don't think I have anything else here that I want to share, but I'm gonna put this video on real quick. Oh, call that. Do I need to turn my volume on?
I think they will do it automatically.
Thanks, John. I got out of IT a long time ago.
I've been through detoxes before. I've been on the taper and I've experienced the pain that it still like causes. And I experienced this, and it's completely different because you don't have to worry about waking up in the morning and waiting for your taper and getting sick and like all this stuff. Like it's already making you feel better. Like it's already helping you like physically and mentally was one of the things that I noticed, because I didn't feel foggy from all the taper meds. Like I just felt clear. And like talking to the other people around here, I'm like, they don't feel like as clear as quickly as I felt clear, which was really interesting to me. When I first came in here, oh my gosh, I was so angry and I wanted to leave. I wanted to go home. I wanted to get high. I remember I told everyone, I said, if I'm not getting meds, I'm leaving and I'm getting high. And I don't care what you have to say about it. Like, I'm going. I don't care. I don't want to be here. And then after like 2 or 3 days, because I was feeling like so myself again, I don't know, it's so hard to explain, because I literally, when I'm getting high, like I've become a completely different person. So the fact that it worked so quickly and I didn't have to like worry about taking like more drugs to like fix the drugs, sorry. I finally like feel like myself again, and now I'm like going on to do more treatment, which was not the plan originally. The plan originally was just to come here, detox, and like after like a couple days of like doing this and just like talking to people and being myself again, like I've made like a huge decision to like continue my treatment on to another place, which was like my parents are just so like grateful for, and I'm really grateful for, so.
Yeah.
You want to go to 507?
507, okay. I want to thank all of you. I've unfortunately have way too much very personal experience with addiction, trauma. Believe it or not, I went through rehab as a kid. You wouldn't know it, but I know how poorly this issue is addressed. And I like that this panel came together as it did, because I think it's not just treating the result of the diseases and the disorders, but the depression often leads to opioid or other drug use disorders and addiction, and trauma being the other source of it. And so I can't tell you how grateful I am. We couldn't be in a better city for this conversation to be taking place. We're not downtown, but just go downtown. It's amazing. So thank you all. And I'm so impressed with the progress you guys are making. I don't think I have a question so much as just gratitude. I really appreciate it. So I'll leave it open to questions for everybody else.
Thanks, Jojo. That means a lot.
Jim.
Question for you, Dan. Really interested in the newborn screening. I'm sure you're familiar with a company called Natus Medical, who has a screening program, which is a really good revenue source for them, for newborns, for basically hearing tests. They're doing an auditory. It's an evoked potential. Is there any opportunities for your company to maybe have a program, a screening program for hospitals for newborns?
Well, I'm not sure, but you're going to know really quick if they're going to go through withdrawal.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's less of a mystery.
It's very much not a mystery. Normally, you can tell from the mom, unfortunately, and the opioids are out of their system within about 18 to 24 hours, and then it's just very obvious.
Thank you. I don't
Okay,
know the questions.
you have 1 minute, Jim.
All right, Brett.
Yeah.
You were previously the CEO of Halo Neuroscience.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, Halo Neuroscience was sold to Flow
Right.
Neuroscience. So I'm interested in that transition because Flow is involved in psychiatric disorders as well. Was there any discussion there in terms of, hey, let's explore magnetic stim? Were these completely independent events?
Yeah, so to be clear, Magnus is completely different from
Understood.
Halo and Flow. I think at Magnus we thought about, we're certainly, I stay in touch with the folks at Flow, and we're well aware of that field for the obvious reasons. I think there's a lot of potential there, and it's actually it's addressing this huge need from almost kind of the other end. I think Magnus's beachhead, at least, is this really acute need for patients in crisis, and you need a powerful, fast-acting intervention, and there's this other need for maybe at some point. At some point, everybody with unipolar MDD has a non-invasive stimulator that they use at home, and I think maybe that ends up being the Flow product, related to what we did at Halo. I think at Magnus we chose, we thought about, is there the opportunity to collaborate sooner rather than later there, and we chose focus because we had so much on the magnetic side of things.
And again, I know you're gone from them, but is it conceivable that the Halo product, in one incarnation or another, can become, as opposed to a consumer product, a psychiatric disorder therapy?
Yeah. At Halo, before that transition, we were medical device people who started Halo, and we took the chance, given the timing, to do a general wellness product that was first for sports and movement, and we sold 25,000 neurostimulators. But we all along, part of our strategy there was to take that and bring it to medical device. And I think we learned a lot about usability and how do you make things that are products that fit into people's lives. And that's whether it's an athlete or a musician or a patient or a clinician in the hospital, trying to get on board with the new technology. There's so much opportunity in making things good products that fit into the clinic and people's lives, and that's really key to making sure that something's going to have an effect in the real world.
And last question, what's the prognosis for a home-based product or DME based on Magnus technology, I guess?
Yeah, so based on Magnus technology, I think there's some technological work that would be needed. The only home use transcranial magnetic stimulators I'm aware of are they're single pulse kinds of things that are about this big, and but I wouldn't rule it out. I think there's potential there, and there's the chance to do some good engineering and advance the field.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all.
Great. Thank you.